College was nothing like what I was expecting. The fun, the parties, and the dates that I plan to have when I leave for college were nothing but expectations that I had when I was in high school. The reality was completely different. I graduated high school and went to my dream university. That is when I realized that I was going there for one purpose: a degree with great grades. This was how all of my expectations of having fun every single day faded away. I was not even interested in making friends. I solely came to the university to attend my classes, then I would either go home or leave for my part-time job. I worked as a waitress in a nearby authentic cafe to support myself. It wasn't too busy during the weekdays, which enabled me to do my readings for the upcoming classes. I had a great passion for all of the subjects we had, as I have always wanted to be an English literature student since I love reading. I was most of my professors' favorite student, and I lived for the appreciation and admiration they expressed toward me. It helped us build a healthy student-professor relationship. In a matter of 2 years, I was already familiarized with all of the professors in my field of study. That meant that I would not face a single problem in my third and last year. I was resting assured that I was going to graduate in time and get the best deals for my master's degree. My assurance was destroyed by the university when they decided to bring a new professor, a fresh, young one. The thing about university is that you rarely have any problems with the old and experienced professors, because they've done the same thing over and over for years. They know how to deal with the material, but a new professor wouldn't be as qualified as the old ones. I knew then that I still had to work even harder than before to make a great impression on the new professor, and to also maintain great grades in the other subjects. The first session with the new professor, we knew him then as Mr. Miles, was very basic, and I couldn't tell what kind of professor he was. However, and as usual, I decided to sit in the front, do my best to pay attention to each single word that comes out of his mouth, and even participate and elaborate. He still managed to leave the classroom without me finding out what he was exactly thinking of me. That is why I went home that day and did lots of research and readings for that subject. I needed to impress my professor and let him know that I want to get the good grades. The following session, I did my best to showcase what a great student I am, but somehow, instead of getting praised for it, Mr. Miles was not so happy about it. He told me that I was interrupting him. That was when I realized that Mr. Miles is my least favorite kind of professor. He's very arrogant and thinks he owns the knowledge of the whole world. He doesn't really accept our questions or elaborations, and is always telling us about his achievements. I still didn't want to fail that class, so I decided to go with the flow. I attended his classes and kept my mouth shut the whole time. I took notes of everything he said. Well, not everything, as he spends a great deal of time speaking about himself. He would always shoot me with weird glances, and I tried to convince myself that it was not personal. He would usually remind the whole class of what an immature student I have been in the first few sessions for trying to prove him wrong, which was never the case. All I wanted to do is prove my existence as a good student. This eventually became my routine, and I learned how to handle his lack of interest in my answers, or even his teasing. I was not going to allow him to ruin my perfectly clean academic record. Time went by very fast, and it was already the end of the semester. Our professors were grading our participation and attendance. I was very nervous as to what kind of grade I was getting from Mr. Miles, and as if that was not enough, he summoned me to his office. I was fidgeting with my fingers in the office, waiting for him to tell me what was wrong, but he never spoke. He kept sipping his coffee and looking at me, which made me even more anxious. "What's your name again, Sugar?" Did he just call me Sugar, or was I just imagining this? Where did that come from? That was what I was thinking at the time. "Caitlin Flesher?" I timidly responded without looking at him in the eyes. "Okay, Caitlin, so I have been meaning to ask you for a long time now. I'm sure you already know why I had to summon you here and talk to you about something as important as this. You see that now, since the semester is coming to an end, I might not have another chance to teach you again. This is why I had to tell you this right away." I was very confused, and I didn't know how to react to this. I didn't even expect him to tell me any of this, because I came to the office with one thing in my mind: bad participation grades that would ruin my score. I nodded for him to continue, and what he said next was the most shocking thing that I have ever heard from a professor. "Would you like to talk about this over a coffee with me? My treat?" My jaw dropped, and I suddenly lost my ability to speak. Mr. Miles, my cold-hearted professor, was asking me out for a coffee. I was scared that if I rejected his offer, he would fail me, so I mumbled a yes. I left the office after he told me the details of our weird, unexpected meeting, or a date. I couldn't tell what it was exactly. I couldn't focus the whole day at my job. My mind was there thinking of what could possibly be the thing he wanted to tell me. I was meeting Mr. Miles after my shift in the same cafe that I was working at. That's why I hurried to change my clothes into my casual outfit. Mr. Miles showed up exactly at the time he said he would. That would be the first time I would see him outside of the university. He dressed more casually and wasn't wearing his glasses, highlighting a beautiful pair of hazel eyes. "How are you, Mr. Miles?" I greeted him. "Call me Ivan, please." Those were enough shocking moments for the day. "I am doing great, Caitlin. How are you doing?" I gave him a generic answer and waited for him to start speaking of whatever he was meeting for. "That was a great semester, wasn't it?" He told me I was doing my best not to ask him to tell me already. I, uncomfortably, agreed and went back to my silence, which he finally understood and started speaking. "I apologize for my behavior in class. I'm sure that if you attended another class of mine, you would have noticed that I was not being myself. Actually, if you attended other classes, I would have been my same arrogant self. That's because you're the reason I keep behaving that way. For the first time you spoke, I felt like I was threatened by your brilliance. I wanted to prove myself as a professor, which eventually led me to speaking more of myself and less of the subject. It went on for a great amount of time, where I observed your actions and came to a conclusion at the end. I am in love with you, Caitlin. I am crazily addicted to you, that the thought of not seeing you anymore drove me mad." I was left speechless, as this was not what I expected. His confession came out of nowhere, no signs, no body language, and no meaningful eye contact. Literally nothing. If he didn't tell me how he felt, I would have never guessed. I was left speechless, as I couldn't gather my mind and tell him how shocked I was at that moment. "Caitlin, I know that me dating you is against the university's laws, and I don't mind waiting for you. You're graduating soon, and nothing would be strong enough to stop us then." He reached for my hand, and I let him hold it. "Does this mean that I still have time to give you my answer, Mr. Miles? I mean, Ivan?" He looked into my eyes and smiled. "Of course, Caitlin. Take your time, and let me know when you're ready." I went home that day with many things on my mind. I definitely focused on what a cruel person Ivan was, that I forgot that he's very gorgeous. Not only that, but also his behavior in the cafe was different, as if he was not the same person. I took my time to consider his offer, and I decided to give him my answer during graduation day. I agreed to date Ivan, and it was the best decision of my life. It gave me a chance to see him as the most gentle and considerate human being who supported my academic life. We recently got married and are both teaching in the same university where we met. I could never tell that my least favorite teacher would become the closest and dearest person to my heart.